Mr. Powell, you talked about the need for a strategy. Can you explain just broadly, like what would a strategy look like? What is, when you say strategy, help us understand specifically what you mean we should be doing.
Chairman Ricketts, thank you. I think it begins with having somebody whose responsibility it is to organize the campaign, right? So part of our problem is that we have I spent 35 years in the world's greatest military. It's also the world's biggest bureaucracy, and it is primarily built around a hard power problem. As a 35-year military veteran, I can tell you that in many ways this is not a military problem. It is a whole of government problem, a whole of society problem. And whose job is that? I mean, is it there's somebody on the National Security Council who's taking this on and saying, how do we wage a successful campaign against an ICAD enemy? And one of the things I think that, I know, Chairman, that you have chosen the term ICAD over gray zone. I actually sort of use both interchangeably, in part because I think that both are helpful for different reasons. And in the gray zone case, I use it because China knows how to fill in all of those gaps in our bureaucracy. So however it is that we're organized, they will organize a counter campaign utilizing their sort of fusion, their civil military fusion organization to sort of push into the gaps. And so we need somebody whose job it is to build the counter ICAD strategy and then to get everybody together. Unfortunately, I can't tell you what all the elements of the strategy is. Obviously, I'm very much a fan of the tactic of assertive transparency, but I think it's going to take some extremely deep thinking to figure that out.
Right. Dr. Ratner, obviously you've spent a lot of time in government. Can you tell us a little bit about when you were in government, what did those strategic options to respond to ICAD look like? And what are some concrete things that we ought to be thinking about?
Well, Senator Ricketts, it relates to the point in my opening statement about preparedness, because one of the things that we did do when I was at the Defense Department with the interagency was, in fact, to do a huge number of scenario planning, a lot of which was organized by the National Security Council, so included economic measures and development measures as well, and actually built a whole set of options around potential contingencies and then associated with them U.S. policy options up against escalatory ladders of actions the PRC could take. So I think that's really important work, and that ought to continue, but that wasn't addressing what we were seeing on a day-to-day basis. And I would again reflect back on the comment in my opening statement that I think, frankly, as a government, we have been too risk averse. We ought not be pig-headed in terms of or overly aggressive in terms of our reactions to get into some escalatory spiral to the PRC, but I don't think we're in danger of that. And what we have been in danger of is self-deterrence and not at all testing what I would describe as the elasticity of decision-making in Beijing, because they themselves are also quite risk-averse against getting into a conflict with the United States. And as I look back on the last couple decades that I've had the opportunity to work in the State Department, at the Defense Department, in the White House, up here on the Hill, there are very few instances where when the United States asserted itself with American power, with our allies, and with conviction and commitment, that Beijing then becomes and tries to escalate against that. That has not happened very much. So what we need to do, whether it's in the Taiwan Strait, whether it's in the South China Sea, is to start pushing back in a way with our power and conviction and allies that, again, test that risk aversion in Beijing as well. And I don't think we've done that sufficiently yet.
Would you agree with Mr. Powell that it maybe starts by putting one person in charge of designing the strategy to combat it?
I think that would help. In the previous administration, there certainly were single individuals in the National Security Council that were in charge of doing that around particular issues, whether it was the Taiwan issue set or the South China Sea issue set. Whether we need someone regionally, I think that's a good question, but I think I have seen the process working pretty well when there is a single individual around an issue set, yes.
Great, thank you.